The rain had been a relentless drum against the shattered window for 3 days now. Elias, a man whose face was a collection of sharp angles and perpetually shadowed eyes, sat hunched, a cheap bottle of whiskey clutched like a drowning man's last hope. His apartment, if you could call it that, was a single grimy room. Peeling wallpaper, the pattern long faded into a ghostly stain, seemed to writhe in the flickering light of a lone, naked bulb. His only company was the echo. It wasn't sound, not really. More a feeling, a cold, creeping sensation that began in the pit of his stomach and slithered up his spine. It started a week ago after the incident. He tried not to think about the incident. Tonight, the echo was louder. It manifested as a growing patch of absolute black on the wall opposite him. Not shadow, but a deeper, impossibly dense void that drank the meager light. It pulsed, slowly, like a bruise spreading on dead flesh. Elias tried to focus on the whiskey, but his eyes were drawn, repelled, then drawn again to the wall. The patch of black began to breathe. Tiny tendrils, like wisps of smoke but solid, snaked out, testing the air. They moved with a slow, deliberate grace, each one a caricature of a grasping finger. He remembered the eyes, the incident, the way they'd gone blank, then wide, then empty. He tried to forget, to drown it, but the echo wasn't a memory. It was a hungry presence. One tendril, thicker than the rest, detached itself from the wall, elongating, stretching. It was grotesque, glistening faintly, ending in a point that seemed to suck the very light from the air around it. Elias stared, paralyzed, his mouth agape. A silent scream died in his throat. The tendril moved faster now, like a viper striking. It didn't aim for him. It aimed for the mirror that hung crookedly on the adjacent wall, a grimy, cracked mirror reflecting his haggard, terrified face. With a sickening crack, the tendril slammed into the mirror, not shattering it, but absorbing it. The glass didn't break. It simply folded in on itself, consumed by the blackness, leaving only the same impossible void where his reflection should have been. The frame, a cheap plastic, dissolved like sugar in water. The echo pulsed harder now, a bass thrumming in his bones. The hole in the wall, where the mirror had been, began to widen. It wasn't just a patch anymore. It was a gaping, hungry maw, outlined by what looked like jagged, chitinous teeth. A foul, metallic smell, like old blood and rust, filled the room. Elias finally moved, scrambling backwards, knocking over his chair with a clatter that was immediately swallowed by the growing silence of the room. The whiskey bottle slipped from his grasp, shattering on the floor. He didn't notice. His eyes were glued to the expanding void. From the depths of the blackness, a sound began to emerge. Not a voice, but a wet, tearing, gurgling whisper. It wasn't words, but the implication of words. Ancient, obscene, and terribly, terribly familiar. His own name. Elias. It was the very sound of his unspoken guilt given form. The mouth on the wall was now vast, consuming half the room. From its depths, a single enormous malformed eye began to open, a sickly yellow iris, a pupil like a bottomless pit. And in its depths, Elias saw not only the distorted image of his own terrified face, but the faces of others, screaming, silent, forever trapped in its terrible gaze. He saw her face, the incident. He tried to hide it, but the echo knew. The eye fixed on him, its gaze colder than any fear he'd ever known. A long, slender, black-veined tongue, impossibly long and segmented, snaked out from the maw. It dripped a thick, oily substance onto the floor, which immediately began to sizzle and smoke. Elias wanted to run, to scream, to die, but he could only stand there, caught in the awful, mesmerizing light of that single judging eye. The echo wasn't just a feeling. It was a physical presence wrapping around him, pulling him forward. The tongue curled, beckoning. The eye widened, and from the depths of the blackness, a chorus of those trapped, whispering faces began to chant his name. Elias. He stumbled, then fell. His hand touched the cold, wet, smoking floor. His vision blurred, then focused on the eye, now all-consuming. There was no escape. The last thing Elias saw before the darkness enveloped him entirely was his own reflection, screaming in the depths of that terrible cosmic pupil. And then there was only the echo.